Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. I think we'll get started here. Would like to welcome everyone to the first meeting of the Combined Parks and Environment Committee since the merger of the Parks, Trails and Rec Committee and the Environment Committee. This is an opportunity to take two fairly broad areas, I think, and pull together a lot of knowledge, and we'll see where this committee goes. And I'm looking forward to this next year. Welcome, everyone. I think get started here. I'd like to welcome everyone to the first meeting of the Combined Parks and wow, that was good. I don't have to yell. It's quite loud. We acknowledge with respect that we're meeting on the traditional territory of the Lewongan speaking people, and we're honored to have the opportunity to build strong working relationships with the people of the Songhees and Kasepsin nations. So I'll call the meeting to order. It's what, 2:03 or 2:33, 2:32, something like that. And our first, we need approval of the agenda. So may I have a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting? Or someone? Yeah. Judy? No? And any opposed? Seeing none, approved. The adoption of the minutes is our next item here. I'd like a motion to the minutes of this the Parks, Trails and Rec Committee meeting held on April 7th, 2025 be adopted as presented. Some Kimberly, and any opposed? None. It's approved. And a motion for the minutes of the Special Environment Committee held November 18th, 2024. Charlotte Gorley. Any opposed? Approved. We move right on. Speedy to public participation, and I see none. There's no one online.
There is one member, somebody online.
Thank you. Is that is this?
There's no hand raised at the time. Oh, there
yeah.
we are.
Oh, it's Pamela Nicholas. Yeah. Hi, Pamela. Pamela's actually a member of the committee, so that's not exactly public. Well, that's great, Pamela. I didn't realize you were there, so that's good. We've got a full house, so to speak. There are actually a few individuals that have sent the regrets. We have Councillor Jordison is unable to attend. She's the co-chair along with myself, and Devon Barnes and Katrin Brown both send regrets. Devon? Oh, there you are. When did you sneak in?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Oh, wow. Well, that's great. I'll take that back. That's cool. Boy, oh boy, here we go. So I guess we can move on to new business at this point. We're going to hear a Colwood Creek Park Management Plan implementation update today. And for that, we have Ryan Campeau, Parks Lead, as I understand. And I think that we'll have lots of questions and comments following your presentation, and we'll just go that way. And I look forward to that. And there's nothing on the agenda calling for a motion for a recommendation or some such to council. So we'll be learning lots, asking lots of questions. So we can go ahead, Brian, if you'd like to take it away. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Good afternoon, committee members. I'm here to provide an update on the implementation of the Colwood Creek Park Management Plan. Thanks. So Colwood Creek Park is our largest developed park, and many elements of the management plan were prioritized in the 2025 to 2029 capital plan. However, a substantial portion of the park is within the Agricultural Land Reserve, or the ALR. The ALR is a provincial designation that restricts non-agricultural infrastructure, and this has led to a pause of all projects in Colwood Creek Park. Here's a look at the Colwood Creek Park capital plan. The Cecil Block parking lot and electrical service upgrade were underway and paused before completion. The remainder of the projects affected by the ALR status are paused at preliminary stages. Given the potential for a lengthy ALC process, we've decided to pivot some of the planned capital projects to other park locations. This allows us to move forward with needed improvements elsewhere while we clarify and resolve the situation at Colwood Creek Park. First, the picnic shelter. This custom fabricated shelter, delivered on May 1st, is suitable for any park where a picnic shelter is prioritized. We've selected Ocean View Park as the next priority location. Installation is expected to be completed later this month. Next is the washroom facility. After a comprehensive review, we selected Herb Williams Park. This park is centrally located and highly programmed, hosting music in the park and many special use permits. Site preparation is currently underway with expected completion in August. So this briefing was published prior to the May 26th council meeting, where staff brought forward a report recommending an ALR exclusion application for Colwood Creek Park. At that meeting, council resolved that the Agricultural Land Commission exclusion application for Colwood Creek Park be referred to staff to return to council with additional information on alternatives to protect the park and to provide amenities affordably. Colwood Creek Park remains a high priority for improvements. Our capital planning process will continue to keep the planned projects ready for implementation, aligning with council's direction to explore alternatives and ensure affordability. We are prepared to adapt to any decisions that arise from this process. In conclusion, Colwood Creek Park's ALR status has presented unforeseen challenges and required a temporary pause on many capital projects. We proactively addressed this by pivoting to two key projects to other priority parks, providing immediate community benefit. While the timeline for resolving the ALR status is uncertain and we are now exploring alternatives, Colwood Creek Park remains a high priority for future improvements. Thank you. We're happy to answer any questions.
That's great. Thanks very much, Ryan. I would ask a question right off the top just to get things going a bit. I was just curious if the ALR designation allows for something like a pseudo agricultural industry use. I'm not sure what I mean by that, except other than, of course, as it is now, but rather, and perhaps something a little more agricultural oriented than a community garden setup, for instance.
So we do have the definition of a non-farm use, and that sort of also includes what's allowed, and that's a farm use encompasses activities related to agriculture, including farming, land, plants, mushrooms, truffles, and animals. It also includes farm operations as defined in the Right to Farm Act and any other purposes designated as a farm use by the regulations. So if that's included in there, it obviously further analysis is required.
So we could have some sheep grazing along the VMP. Anyway, sorry. It's a bit of a, I suppose that would fit. But we can, I would just like to open it now to questions or comments from the committee. Karen Woodland.
Hello.
Sorry. Oh, there you are now. Sorry.
I wonder if you can give us some background on agricultural land reserve policy and why that was brought in and what the purpose is, particularly, I think, relating to food security.
I can only speak to that at more of a high level, sort of as it relates to our implementation of this park here. So I mean, it's just sort of as explained in the briefing, I guess is probably the best way to have it. Gord, do you have anything to add to that? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think the history as far as the agricultural land reserve is was exactly what you mentioned, is to have food security for the city of Colwood, farmland set aside that that's able to be used for farming if the city should ever need it to do that. So, I mean, that's very high level. As far as I'm not sure on the history or the decisions that were made from the previous administration that brought the ALR in. So that's pretty much what we can answer for you. I don't know if you're looking for something more specific.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, committee members. What we're doing is this went forward to council at the last council meeting, and what council directed us to do is to bring back a fulsome report. Here's where we're at with our existing park plan. Here's what the approvals are through the ALC. And what we want to do is bring that report back to council that's going to answer a lot of those questions. Our parks group typically don't deal with these sorts of applications through the ALC. Will be through our planning department. But overall, there are only a handful of properties in the ALR in Colwood. And so that being the case, this isn't something that we deal with on a day in, day out basis. In my time as a former land use planner, or as I like to say, recovering land use planner, this is one of the things when I was in the Okanagan that we dealt with almost daily. The interactions between ALC lands, what was permitted, what was not permitted, making applications for non-farm use to allow things like golf courses, other sorts of opportunities like that. So what we've done with the ALC is we've gone back to them and we've said, this is our existing plan. Here's how we want to intensify the use. What application do you think is appropriate in order for us to come back forward to allow these to be uses in perpetuity? So when we went back to council, we said, we think we should apply for an exclusion application. Council said, well, you know, the ALR and the ALC is something that's really important to this community. Is there something else that we could potentially do that still protects that status and allows us to carry forward with the park's uses? So that information is forthcoming. We don't have that today. We have embarked upon that last week. Our parks group and myself, we talked about this on Thursday last week, and we're getting some clarification from the ALR about what our application would look like, what our options are for the intensification of these uses. So to answer your question, there's a lot more information that's coming that we don't have today that we plan to bring you in the future. Given that this is an evolving application, and essentially that's what it is because we're trying to intensify the park's uses, while still respecting the fact that having land set aside for groundling within the community is important because we live on an island. And our opportunity to protect ALR lands and to be able to have food safety is something that's important to council. So we want to make sure that we're looking at all aspects of that and bringing back a fulsome report to council, which I'd also expect council likely would refer back to the committee for comments afterwards. So I think that gives you a bit of a snapshot. So when you're asking the details on the ALC and how that fits together, our staff don't generally deal with that on a day in, day out basis. We're working with the commission to get what the applications are, and we look forward to bringing that information to council and ultimately where I think it will wind up back at this committee for a referral at some point as well.
Thank you. Carol Brown.
If the application is either rejected or the city decides to withdraw the application, is there an opportunity to build washrooms in the 0.8 hectare that is not under the agricultural land reserve? Is this an appropriate location? Is this enough land? Could I put that out there to maybe Gord?
Yeah, it is. And the reason we pivoted away from that was just to go through this process so that we didn't want to give up on putting the washrooms and all the amenities, you know, where we feel is the best spot for them. But if it comes down to that situation, yes, we could build a washroom there.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is that Devon? Yeah, please.
Thanks, Ryan, for your presentation. Got a couple questions here. Has the vertical farming been looked at? And given the land area size of Colwood Park, to have a good agricultural operation, I figured that you'd need to go vertical rather than just focus on one crop or a multiplicity of crops. Places that are challenged with land area availability often go vertical. So maybe that could be a potential avenue for keeping it ALR land and maintaining the food security through vertical farming.
Just to clarify, so what was the question? Have we looked at vertical farming? We haven't looked at any agricultural use for the park at this point. You know, we would, if that's information that would help us use the park as well as that, but it looks like our CAO have.
Jason, please.
Yeah, to answer your question about this particular property, no, we haven't. What we want to do is we want to get that information from the LR. Here's what we have today. Here's what's permitted. Here's what we want to do moving forward. Here's the application pieces that we could potentially put in. And what would that net benefit to agriculture look like so that we could carry on with our park uses while also integrating that agricultural component. Having said that about these particular lands, I can tell you that I have heard some economic development opportunities for vertical farming for other parcels within Colwood, within our jurisdiction, to have multi-stories of vertical farming and the different opportunities that would come along with that. But in in answer to this particular property, that hasn't been something we've looked at, but we will be providing what the opportunities are to work with the ALC to make sure that the agriculture is a key component to the park moving forward, given that it is designated as such. And we want to work with them in collaboration to get our approvals moved ahead. And at the same time, recognizing that council wants to maintain that agricultural designation. They asked us not to look at the exclusion application. What are other things that we can do within the ALR to allow this to continue respecting that designation that's on it, because there is concerns about food security.
Thank you. So there's a fair amount of uncertainty also about the ALC's opinion of non-farm use and what fits there. Is it 100 square meter allowance for a structure, which is not big, but it sounds big enough for a washroom. But we don't know. In other words, we're waiting to hear back kind of their position on a lot of this. Just my own personal, following the media over 30 years out here, the ALR, the ALC, and the public kind of perception of that body and the legislation seems to intensify and drop off. It sort of moves up and down, and it's a little bit hard to know right now at what degree they're going to say be pedantic about not releasing anything, or rather being compliant with allowing it to go. I mean, it's functioning as a park now. It's hard to imagine that it's got a higher use. However, we never know, right? So I think, Jason, what you've been saying is we need to wait to hear very much, and that the indication is that it could take 2 years for a result anyway. Is that reasonable, or is that just paperwork?
I think your characterization of timeline is appropriate. Myself, having worked on a number of exclusion applications, non-farm uses, it's better to work with the commission than try and work against, which is, you know, the exclusion. And if there is exclusions, what the Agricultural Land Reserve Commission is often looking for is a net benefit to agriculture. So if you're taking out a hectare, you're putting 2 hectares back in. In this case, council has said to us very clearly, listen, we want to maintain the designation. How is it that we can potentially add other components that are in there to allow our park intensification to move forward? And I think it's fair to say that we haven't put improvements in there in contrary to what the ALC designation is, but we didn't want to make that worse. That's why we were checking in with them about the intensification of the use. I'd love to be able to give you some answers to these questions, but you know, similarly to the regional districts legislation, which has been around since the late 60s, it's the same with the ALR. The ALR came into place through the NDP in the late 60s, early 70s. And it's changed and morphed, and it changes under different direction of the provincial government. But the mandate of the ALC has remained, which is what's the net benefit to agriculture. You know, the days of allowing golf courses within the ALR, few and far between. The Agricultural Land Commission has expanded their mandate, has maintained it. And what our intention is to get all of these answers for you so that we can talk about what we need to do and what we'd like to do from a public amenity standpoint, as well as agriculture.
Yeah, it's an interesting discussion. I think the Royal Colwood Golf Course probably was the golf course before the LR. Am I right about that? Yeah. So presumably the ALC decided that to designate the golf course, ALR land would be to, were it to not become something other than a golf course, it would be protected as agricultural land. I'm making assumptions, of course, but the other thing was the non-farm use application was recommended. If I recall from the council meeting, it seems to me that the idea of putting in the application to withdraw, were it to fail, then we could then apply for non-farm use status. Did that flow that way?
I believe that was the intention behind staff, but what we've said is we want to go to the ALR with, here's our plan today.
Yeah.
Here's the plan that we'd like to move forward with the long-term plan, and here are the improvements that we have. In order for us to get to that end goal of what we want to do with that parks management plan, what are the applications that we need to do? And I think we need to start there. And I think not having that information, right, to talk about and give us that basis and framework for discussion is hard at the moment.
Yeah, fair enough. Anyone else with questions, please? Carol Brown? No, that.
This is about park amenities and not specifically about Colwood Creek. I'm just curious as the cost of a picnic shelter is, I'm sure it looks very good, but it is expensive. 90,000, I think, is in the cost estimate there. And I just, it's not a question, it's more a comment that it just speaks to the value of our urban trees. Because if we retain our urban trees, especially around playgrounds, we may have the opportunity to place picnic tables under trees that are already existing. And there's a huge saving there. If a picnic shelter is 90,000, we not only save that money, we have benefits in carbon sinks that the trees provide and other bird sanctuary, wildlife, that sort of thing. So it's more a comment, it's not a question, but just the fact that we always, and I think Colwood is very good this way, that we really need to keep that always in our thinking, the value of our urban forest. And when we design parks, if we could plant trees around the playground area, because our children are moving into a climate that is going to be hotter and less opportunity for shade maybe. So the more shade trees we plant in our parks provide not only shelter while they're playing, but shelter while they're eating. And they save us money if we have to build picnic shelters at that price, and they will continue to be more expensive. It's, as I say, this is not a question. This is just a comment. This one is a question. It sounds like we are not going ahead with washrooms at Colwood Creek at this time, but we are at Herm Williams. And I'm just looking at the costs. And would the cost for the washroom at Herm Williams be the same as the cost that is quoted for Colwood Creek's?
It'll be probably about $60,000 to $70,000 cheaper. It's a similar build, the prefabricated washroom, but the servicing requirements are a little bit different at Herm Williams. We don't need change rooms on that one, so it's not a custom floor plan, so it's a bit more affordable.
Thank you very much. The Cecil Blog parking lot is 80% complete. Is that right? So we have to wait for the answer to our inquiry with the ALC to decide whether to finish that parking lot. Is that right?
So right now it's the gravel prep is complete. There's some regrading involved with that location. And before the next steps would be a top layer of gravel and some paving work. So before we made it more permanent, we decided that it would be prudent to pause that work and just make it safe by blocking it off from public access.
So it can't be used at all?
No.
In the meantime?
No. Probably would create some dust concerns.
Oh, yeah,
from
right.
the usage
Sure.
with what it is right now. So.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Devon.
I have some questions about the washroom facility in Hermes Park. Hermes. Is it a composting toilet or how is that being managed, the sewage?
It is a storage tank that gets pumped out.
So
Yes.
what would be a carrying cost of that for, like, it looks like you have it quite central in the park. Are they gonna drive into the park or?
There is a gate and road access right to the site.
Okay.
So it's accessible by a pump truck.
Okay. And then a different question, if I may. About the ALR Colwood Creek Park, does dog kennel or dog parks fit under the ALR description at all?
So I did look up some examples. There are some specific examples of other local governments doing non-farm use permits for making an informal dog park into a formal dog park in ALR land. Sorry. So right now it's an informal dog park. It's just an open field on the Cecil Block side. And there are examples elsewhere of that exact scenario happening. And where the local government wished to turn that into a formalized dog park with fencing and amenities, much like the plan for Colwood Creek. And that required a non-farm use application to formalize that dog park use.
Thank you. Chris.
So assuming we're looking at a multi-year timeline for the application process, I'm curious what comes next after the picnic shelter and the washrooms in terms of devoting our attention and resources to.
Specifically to Colwood Creek? Or just are you
No,
in our
to-
parks?
because we'll be waiting, what comes next on the list if we have to wait longer than we hope
I'm just, but for Colwood Creek or for our parks
for our
plan?
parks.
Yeah, so right now we're working on Ocean View, washroom in Ocean View, washroom at Lookout Lake, washroom at Quarry Park, the new Quarry Park, as well as park improvements for Havenwood and Latoria Creek. So it's a full parks plan, capital plan.
Thank you. Karen Woodley.
The image you showed of the washrooms is very appealing.
Can you hit your button again, please? There you go.
The image you showed of washrooms was very appealing and interesting roof. But I'm wondering if you've considered making all parks amenities suitable for solar in the beginning with orientation and slope and so on.
We have, and unfortunately for Herm Williams, it's quite treed. So the solar wouldn't work there. But these washrooms do have the ability to have solar, as well as the way these are the chamber toilets, but they actually look, feel, and are used like a regular toilet. It's not like a pit toilet. So there also is the ability to use rainwater, stormwater to flush toilets and that sort of thing as well.
Thank you. Chris, your mic is still on. Did you want another question? No. Okay. Thank you very much. Kimberly.
I was just wondering in the interim also, if it is and it stays the ARR land, are there plans being kind of like an alternative set of plans kind of to, in the form of maybe community gardens or something like that in that space, instead of what I know is already, the plans that have been established? If there's like an alternative set of plans that you guys are working on.
Not yet, but as we work through the process with the ALC, part of that would be altering the management plan for Colwood Creek, if that's what we need to do.
Thank you. Pamela. You just have to speak up, Pamela. That'd be great.
Thank you. So in terms
I think you're
of,
muted, Pamela, somehow.
no? Hello, hello, hello?
We understand it's on your side that the muting is, or
No, I'm not
no?
muted.
Hmm.
I'll
Yeah,
type it
you
out in the
try
chat.
typing it.
Um,
Ah, magic. No pressure or anything. Are trees going to need to be removed in the process of these changes?
So adding the washroom to Herm Williams, we don't believe that we're going to have to, it should fit in there nicely with the trees.
You heard that all right, Pamela? Yeah, cool. Did you have another question then, Pamela, while you're on? Thank you. Devon.
Can the washroom facilities be secured? Like, I'm just worried about unhoused people potentially turning that into a place to sleep in the cold night.
Yeah, so that will be an upgrade that comes from Colwood, and we would have it like we do the Meadow Park washroom or washrooms down at the lagoon. They would be on a timer and be open from, I think it's like dawn to dusk, or closed, open dawn to dusk. Yes, and close the rest of the day.
Thank you. I can feel the momentum, the barrel dripping dry here. Do you have any more questions, comments, ideas? Karen Woodland.
Have you considered, like I'm thinking of the washrooms at the lagoon and the beautiful Indigenous art designs on the doorways. Have you considered something similar or perhaps some natural history education, like using the doorways to point out wildflowers or what we'd like to protect?
Yes, we do consider that, and actually right now the washrooms at Lagoon will be getting an Indigenous mural that we've been looking to put that up for a while now, but we're always looking at that opportunity, and a great suggestion as well for using it as a education tool as well.
Thank you. Aha. Carol, please.
Just one more. With we're not allocating funds to be spent within this year now, certain funds. Are those funds, are they set aside until the ruling, the application is determined whether it's successful or is withdrawn or whatever particular category we choose? The outlay of money will be dependent on that. Is that money set aside and more or less banked, or is that money dispersed now within the park's management plan as a whole, and we therefore go to the next level, the next, whether it be Ocean View or Havenwood, the next park on the list for improvements?
That's a really good question and a good finance question. But to answer your question, Ocean View has a budget. Lookout Lake has a budget. The washrooms at Quarry Park, they all have budgets, and they're all part of the capital plan. What happens with the capital planning budget for Colwood Creek, I'm not exactly sure how that would work. I'm assuming it would still be there though.
Thank you, Jason.
Council allocates the funds. So it's really clear about what parks are receiving what funds, and that's done on a yearly basis. We do a 5-year financial plan that shows where we are putting funds moving forward in the future, but that's council's determination through the budget of that year to make sure that that program continues. So it wouldn't be fair to say that there's $1 million in a parks fund that we go and spend depending on what happens. No, council allocates those funds and it's very clear, very transparent. And what we're doing is we're right now working with council on council strategic plan. But what they've also asked us to do is put together what we're calling the operational plan. We're not sure if that's the right nomenclature at this point. But what's going to happen in that operational plan, you'll see every improvement that we have, who it's responsible, who in City Hall is responsible for that project, how much the budget allocation is, and there's going to be a dashboard. That dashboard is going to be a real simple one, which is going to show if the project's on time and on budget, it's green. If the project is experiencing some concerns, it's yellow. In this case with Colwood Creek, if we had this in the operational plan right now, this would be in the red because we have to deal with the ALC. There's some major concerns that we have to deal with. What this committee and what the public and what council is going to see is this is essentially the report card for the organization. Here's what we said that we were going to do in this year. Did we do it on time? Did we do it on budget? And we're going to allocate that dashboard and actually run a percent. Did we actually say and we do all the things that we thought we could? And then, of course, the best laid plans, always things come up like this. So you'll be able to really see what you're getting for your tax dollars every year, which is, we have that now in service review. We have that now in the financial plan. But what council's asked us to do is have it in much more metrics so that everybody can see how all of these pieces fit together and see the timelines. So you can see as we shift away from Colwood Creek Park, because we're dealing with the ALR, then you can see how we would move another project up that's within the allocation to be able to move forward to have council's improvements and tax dollars used within the community. You can expect to see that on July 14th at council with the revised strategic plan and the operational plan. And it would be something that I would suggest that this committee would probably want to have a look at as well, just to see, because it provides really valuable information as we move ahead.
Does that information migrate out to all the committee members?
We'll take council's direction on that. We can certainly do that, have that as a piece of business to go through so that the committees can see what's happening and ask questions as we move along.
Yeah.
We haven't got that far with council because council hasn't even seen the draft of what the operations plan is going to look like at this point. But we are moving back from a July 14th public rollout of council's revised strategic plan and this new operational plan. And then on top of it, we're going to have a report that shows all of the core work within this period. So something like this ALR and how this has come forward would be something that we'd remark to council. Yes, this impacted our work plan and here's why. And here's how we've shifted other projects to make it a priority. So everything's really transparent.
So with this capital plan we see for Colwood Creek here in front of us today, that is paused. And then other projects have been moved up in priority. The funds don't move. Just the priority of the project moves, is that?
Council moves the funding. The priority, what we're planning to do is bring those priorities every quarter to council so that if something needs to be moved up, council gives us the direction to do that.
Right. Thank you. Devon?
Now you got me into this report idea. Do you guys mark out like underspent or overspent and justifications of why? It just seems, and I'm gonna take a little bit of a shot here, but $90,000 for a picnic shelter seems pretty pricey to me. Seems like an underspent item potentially.
Sorry, not quite clear on what the question was there. Could you please repeat that?
Yeah, so it sounds like you guys are getting, oh, wait, it sounds like you're coming up with an operational strategic plans and you're gonna have your mileposts spelled out and, for example, use the picnic shelter as one. You've been allocated $90,000 for it. Are you also gonna mark your cost overruns and your cost underruns Because potentially you could do a cost underrun on the $90,000 picnic shelter.
We do that in every project. All large scale projects, we're going to be doing what's called the lessons learned. And that lessons learned is, so if we made a mistake in one project, we don't want to carry that through to the next one. And so the threshold of that is something that we haven't determined yet. But in my previous role at the City of Victoria, and I've got to tell you the experience of the Johnson Street Bridge from where it started and where it ended, you wouldn't want to make those same mistakes moving ahead in the future. Because what happens in an organization is people move on in institutional memory, unless you've got that lessons learned to go, what happened during that project? You might be making that same mistake again.
Yeah.
You have to learn the valuable lesson as to what went well and where potential improvement could be for the future. And that's certainly something that we're looking at. But what I can tell you, this organization and the financial backbone we have is second to none. We want to make sure that we're using tax dollars as best we can, and where we can have the cost underrun. And then in the case where something goes over, we have to justify that to council. Why did this go over? What were the factors for it? That's why in that operational plan, one of the key deliverables on that dashboard is green. Yes, it's on budget, or it was under budget. Yellow, no, it's likely something's going to change. Or red, yeah, we're over for this reason. And we provide those explanations and have a fulsome conversation every quarter with council, so you can see all of the projects. And that's not to say that we haven't been doing this. We certainly have. We've been doing, and council has a process where service reviews are done every year, where we go through all of the projects that are being done. That's done in November and December. What we haven't had is a fulsome quarterly report. We've had a quarterly report that talks about all the things that have happened, but not with the dashboard. And that's what we're trying to get towards, is having that in place. And I'm really looking forward to working with council to get that forward for them. So it essentially becomes the report card of the organization, how well we did based on what we said we can do. And where are those lessons learned that in the future, we've learned the lessons that we need to, and we move forward.
Thank you. Gord.
Just to add that, sorry, we kind of misunderstood your question on the picnic shelter, but just as an example, we redid a bridge in Latoria Walk where, we were quite under budget, but we didn't quite get the bridge that we wanted either, which is, we're still happy with the product, but we were able to incorporate, on our next bridge build, exactly what we didn't get and what we need, and that bridge to not, as our CEO has just explained, that lessons learned within that project. So we are doing that on a consistent basis.
Thank you. Well, so be it. These smiling faces. I don't know. I think this committee had, as I recall, had bubbling with questions in the past. But that's it. I think we are ready to call this meeting to a close. A motion for adjournment, please. Anyone? Kimberly? Anyone opposed? None? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.